We ask, what is the declaration Fiducia Supplicans? It is a rebellion against God and the autogenocide of the Catholic Church. Who is its author? The invalid Pope Francis Bergoglio and his accomplice Fernández. How must Catholics respond to this situation? The only solution for the Catholic faithful, priests and bishops who want to be saved is to separate from the Bergoglian sect that occupies the Vatican. This separation is a purely gospel demand. Bergoglio's Vatican is no longer the Catholic Church. Bergoglio is not a shepherd, and neither are those who submit to him and obey him. The Lord Jesus says of them that they are thieves and hirelings, who did not enter by the door, but climbed in through the fold of orthodoxy. The tragedy today is the heresy of papolatry, which claims that a false pope must not be removed from office, but remains a valid pope. The teaching of the Church condemns the heresy of papolatry. The Church Fathers, doctors of the Church, the dogmatic bull cum ex apostolatus officio, and in the first place, the Holy Scriptures clearly show that a manifest heretic draws upon himself God's curse and anathema. This is true of pseudo-Pope Francis, who preaches a different, sodomite anti-gospel. The Scriptures say that even if an apostle himself or even an angel from heaven preaches a different teaching than that which Jesus Christ gave us, let him be accursed. Saint Bellarmine adds to this: the Pope who is manifestly a heretic ceases by himself to be Pope and head, in the same way as he ceases to be a Christian and a member of the body of the Church. Fiducia Supplicans is the Magna Carta of Bergoglio's satanic anti-church. What specifically are Catholics to do in this situation? It is necessary for a group of Catholics in the parish to gather together, get clear about what the truth is, go to their priest and tell him clearly that they must separate themselves from Bergoglio's structure that occupies the leadership of the Catholic Church. The priest tells them, if I do that, the bishop will fire me. What will the group of believers answer him? If you get fired, we stand behind you. The priest says, the bishop will take our church. They will reply, we will not give it to him, and if it's taken away from us by force, we will meet elsewhere, not in the church anymore, but we will stay with you. If the priest says, I have to obey my bishop, and my bishop is subordinate to pseudo-Pope Francis, the believers will answer, if that is the case, we separate ourselves from you. You are no longer our priest. Let those who betrayed Christ and his way of salvation come to your church. If the priest wakes up and says, okay, then I stay with you, faithful Catholics. I will unite with several priests and will encourage our bishop in person or in writing to separate himself from Bergoglio's sect with the whole diocese. This will create the conditions for a true and valid Pope to be accepted. This is the only solution. If there are more such priests in the diocese and they unite for Christ and sound teaching, then the hope is that the bishop, who will have the support of priests and the priests the support of the faithful, will fulfill his duty to separate himself from the apostate Vatican. However, if the bishop refuses to separate, the faithful Catholic priests and believers must separate from him. There is no other solution. This will not be a schism, but a necessary saving process. It is Bergoglio who causes a schism, separation from God's laws. What should bishops do? Separate from the Bergoglian Vatican as quickly as possible along with their dioceses. This will give way to the acceptance of the rightful Pope. That is the only solution today. The true Catholic bishop should call the priests whom he knows to be faithful to Christ, and with them prepare the separation of the whole diocese from subordination to the apostate Vatican. Then he should invite all the priests and explain the situation clearly to them, so that they understand that the only solution is to separate from the apostate Bergoglio. Finally, he may ask the priests to raise their hands publicly to show who is for separation and who is against. Those who choose to stay with Bergoglio actually support the anti-gospel that places a person under an anathema. Therefore, let the bishop expel them from the church in due course and declare before the faithful that they should beware of them, because they are no longer Catholic priests. The bishop who is undecided supports the so-called Overton window of change of mind. If Catholics do not separate from Bergoglio, his crimes will become the norm and the transformation into a New Age anti-church will take root. But now is still the time of salvation. If the bishop is passive and silent, he will receive an order from Bergoglio that he must bless the sin. If he refuses to, Bergoglio will separate him and fire him, so such a bishop will end up as a coward and traitor. But if he acts in faith, he will become a hero and save the diocese. Even priests must be aware of this. Therefore, they must unite and fully support their bishop in separating from Bergoglio. They must stand firmly behind him to make this church-saving move. We draw attention especially to those bishops who have clearly stated that they will not introduce the blessing of gay couples in their diocese. This step is commendable, but insufficient, as Bergoglio will remove these bishops one by one. It is therefore necessary to take the second step, to separate from Bergoglio and his sect. This will create the conditions for a true pope. If in this certain intermediate period, when Fiducia Supplicans have already been issued, a bishop or a priest still says, in union with Francis our Pope, he thus publicly declares that he is in union with a false Pope who is in public rebellion against God. Because of this, God's anathema, curse, falls on such a bishop or priest. Of course, by the same token, the late sententia excommunication applies to him. Therefore, if the priests continue to profess this union, the faithful must admonish and warn them both orally and in writing. However, if they still continue to mention union with a public apostate from Christ, i.e., a public Judas in the Mass, then a group of true believers need to agree among themselves, and at such a Mass, at the moment when the priest says, "In union with Francis our Pope," they should exclaim, "Anathema," and leave the church in protest and no longer go there. Let them do the same in the churches where union with the pseudo-pope is professed by the bishops. Unless a bishop separates in good time, he will, so to speak, suspend the courageous priests in accordance with Bergoglio's intentions. If a courageous priest has the support of the faithful, he should not leave. Supposing he is forcibly expelled, let him and his faithful form a catacomb church. A bishop who will punish, for example, only one priest for ceasing to say the name of the heretic Bergoglio in the liturgy shows that he is in rebellion against Christ, thereby placing himself under an anathema curse. At the same time, he is ipso facto excommunicated late sententia. The Mass of such a bishop is invalid, and his blessing no longer invokes God's blessing, but a curse, that is, spiritual darkness. The priests and the faithful must separate themselves from such a heretical bishop, otherwise, if they are led by him, they will end up in eternal damnation.